and welcome to the first episode of XOXO Riverdale. I'm Louie Pearlman.
I'm Kate Vatter.
And we're here together. This is our very first episode. We love Riverdale, we're huge fans, and we love it so much that we decided to start a podcast about it.
Yeah, other people got tired of hearing me talk about it. So I'm gonna try and focus all that energy into one place, even though I'm still just gonna talk about it all the time.
Which is great, and hopefully your session will be appreciated by people far and wide all over the internet.
Somewhere out there.
Exactly, beneath the pale moonlight, there are other Riverdale fans.
Yeah.
So, my first question for both of us is, how did you come to the show? What made you want to watch the show in the first place, and why do you love it so much?
I must have been reading like a news thing, and it was like, oh, this new show is like dark Archie. And I was like, that's interesting, maybe I'll watch it, but I also watch too much TV and didn't think I was gonna put it in. But another friend of mine posted the day before it aired, she was like, hey, I'm gonna watch this show Riverdale. Someone else please watch it too. Mm-hmm. I was like, I got you, girl. And then I watched it, and then I watched it another 30 times before episode 2.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you talk about, a friend of yours was like, am I gonna be the only one watching this? And the show proved to be very popular with a wide demographic of people.
Yeah, I'd say I know a lot of comedians in and around and above 30.
Yes, love the show.
Who all started watching and then slowly, gathered into a group.
Yes, that's true.
We caught people in our wily webs.
That's right, yeah. We both got added, that's how we met each other. We both got added to a secret Facebook group.
It was created by a friend who was like, hey, should we start a secret Facebook group? And I said yes. So I was member number 2.
Okay, great. So you were member number 2.
And then
I got brought in by mutual comedian friends of ours.
Right.
Who know that I'm a huge Archie Comics geek and knew that I was watching the show.
Right. I think you're the only one I know who watched because you love Archie. A lot of people watch because they know Archie.
Yes.
And we're like, this is weird that it's Archie meets Gossip Girl meets Twin Peaks, and I want to see how it works because it sounds like it won't.
And for me, that wasn't particularly surprising because, as you just said, I've been reading Archie comics my whole life, and I sort of refound them in my mid-20s, mainly because the company went through an incredible resurgence.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Mainly due to new editorial happening at that company. This editor-in-chief named John Goldwater Jr., who is the child of one of the original editors-in-chief of the company, came in and really breathed new life into the company.
Unexpected that...
Yeah, and he comes from a background in music industry. I think he's like a music manager.
Okay.
So he really wanted to contemporize the company.
Yeah.
And the company and the characters were always known as being really straight-laced and all-American, and they still are. However, he definitely brought a very inclusive and liberal slant to
for sure
what he was doing with the characters and what his vision was for the company and the company's intellectual property.
Yeah, because I never followed Archie comics. I think I bought one when I was a kid and was like, this is boring. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
But something Kevin Keller would come out and it would cross my path.
Yes, definitely. That was the beginning of the whole resurgence, was the first appearance of Kevin Keller. It was a character created by this really awesome cartoonist named Dan Parent. He created Kevin Keller, I think now 6 years ago, in an issue of Veronica, and bringing a gay character into the Archie world and then just making that character completely 100% accepted, with it not being the dramatic thrust of the story, was actually highly revolutionary and happened before there were mainstream gay characters in other bigger selling comic book lines. It happened before DC and Marvel was doing anything like that, which is really fascinating.
I don't know that it was before DC.
Well,
DC had female.
Yes, there have been gay characters in both DC and Marvel for a really long time.
Batwoman.
Batwoman appeared a little before Kevin Keller.
Yeah.
However, Kevin Keller was a regular prominent member of this title. And it was a little differently handled than DC or Marvel. Yeah. Marvel has gay characters as well, certainly. Iceman came out recently.
Right. But there's more than one X-Men too. But also X-Men have been an allegory for it this whole time.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. So for me as an adult, I was really impressed with what they were doing for kids, basically. And then from there, the company went through even more of a rebranding when they brought in this writer named Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, who is mainly known as a playwright. He wrote Dog Sees God, and he also was a writer on Glee. And
yes. That's why I knew his name before this.
Yes, totally.
He wrote a lot of Glee.
Yes, he did. He was one of the big hands behind Glee. And he also wrote a play that was only produced once that Archie Comics threatened, they cease and desisted it, that was a play about Archie and Jughead discovering that they had feelings for each other.
Which is all fan fiction.
It is. It's all fan fiction.
Less
but
than you'd think.
They liked what he was doing.
Right.
So they brought him in to start writing for them. And then he created a very successfully selling horror comic called Afterlife with Archie.
Which is the only Archie I've read. And I also realized I'm not totally caught up, but I have read at least half of Afterlife with Archie.
Yeah, and Afterlife with Archie is awesome. And draws from many, many different influences. And then I've been attending these Archie Comics panels for the last 5-6 years at Comic-Con every year, New York Comic-Con. And for the last few years, they've been talking about this pilot, Riverdale, that was going to be a CW show.
It was always CW. That's interesting.
You know what? I don't want to say flat out that it was always supposed to be CW. Yeah. I think they were actually shopping it around to some other networks, but it landed at CW.
The only other CW show I know about was Showtime bought it first, and then they had to completely upheaval all of it. It was Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. It was a Showtime show.
Yeah.
And then they had to make it okay for
more
network.
More CW friendly. Yeah. And I think that Greg Berlanti has been involved since the very beginning, and he's the producer behind all of the DC comic shows on CW.
Yeah, I was going to say,
they're all very similar.
I noticed something we'll get to it in an episode that tied with all of their properties.
Yes. I'm interested to hear about that, but I think he definitely helped get it sold because he's on a real CW hot streak right now.
Oh, yeah.
His shows are all doing really well.
CW's doing the first time since it was the WB and they had Dawson's Creek.
This is true. Yeah, absolutely. They're killing it. So of course all these, instances of me being interested in the characters and the property, I was very interested in how the show would pan out. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I actually think it's a better quality show than I expected it to be.
I think for most people that's true.
Yes, I think that's why we're talking about it as comedians.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get into it.
Let's hit it, baby!
Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to talk about episode 1 is what we're going to do first and foremost. So here we are talking about episode 1. Let's get into it. How do you feel? How do you feel about episode 1 watching it this time around?
I was delighted. Mm-hmm. It was not so. In the later episodes, I would watch the episode and then immediately watch it again. Mm-hmm. The first episode, that was not true, but I think that's simply because I didn't realize how much I was going to be combing for clues. I think I was pleasantly surprised by, how attractive everyone was.
Yes.
But it hit a lot of the tones Gossip Girl had in those early seasons before. It was just okay, we get it. Who is it? And yeah, it was worth sticking around for another episode. Yeah.
So are you saying that the show didn't totally 100% wow you at first?
I think it didn't. And something that was pointed out to me by a coworker who started watching the show, and I immediately accosted for his feelings, was that the immediate opening is that we have to care about who killed someone we've never met.
This is true, and that's very tricky.
The stakes aren't there. Mm-hmm. But we end up feeling so much for the people around this moment that we do eventually care.
Yes, and from a comic book perspective, for them to kill off this character that we've been reading about for 50 years or so is a really good, bold move within the context of if you're a fan. But definitely if you're coming into the show, it's not like they killed off a really recognizable character. Right. It's not like Reggie is the one to get it, which
it's cool that you think Reggie is super recognizable. Well, I would say Betty, Veronica, Archie, maybe Jughead. Yeah. And otherwise, no one.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, absolutely. So they didn't kill off any of those characters for obvious reasons. So we are starting with a sort of an uphill battle with the show.
Can I ask you a comics question?
Of course. That's what I'm here for.
I know. That's, you're half the job. I feel like years ago there was a comic where Archie died for someone.
Absolutely.
Who did he die for?
He died for Kevin.
That was my guess. Because I feel like it was another twist for the people who want All-American Boy that he died saving a gay man. But...
Well, that whole storyline, and we can diverge and talk about it for a second, because I think it was highly influential on this show. That storyline was very much intended to be a subversion of expectations, but also a reaffirmation of the comics line as being all-American through their modern liberal lens.
Yeah, it shows that's who Archie is.
Very much so. That was a comic that was called Life with Archie. That was a larger magazine format comic that would always have two stories in it. The first story would always be following the path that Archie would have taken if he had married Veronica.
Okay.
And the second one always followed if he had married Betty.
Right.
So that was the whole conceit of the comic, but they were deciding that it was time to wrap it up. It had had a successful few years. And what they actually did in a really smart way is they merged the two storylines and made the death of Archie applicable for either storyline, like either timeline.
Is it both universes?
Yeah, it's both universes, and in that universe, they're all grown-ups. And Kevin Keller is I think a congressman.
I was going to say politician.
Yeah, he's either a congressman or a senator who served in the war, and who is fighting for, and this is very timely today, he's a congressman who's served in a war. And he's a veteran, and he is fighting for sensible gun reform.
Wow.
And a gun nut tries to shoot him, and Archie jumps in between him and the bullet. So,
topical.
Very topical.
Topical.
And also, I mean, really, that's definitely the comics. That's definitely the comics wearing its politics on its sleeve as well.
Right.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
And also you can see the parallels between that sort of depiction of the characters with the way that the characters are depicted on Riverdale, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Glad I asked.
Yeah, so that's when Archie died. This is when Jason dies. And we have this very moody opening, very noir. We've got Jughead sitting at Pop's.
We don't see Jughead.
No, we don't see him at first.
We know he's at Pop's, but we don't see Jughead until almost the end of the episode.
This is true. And he appears, basically.
Yeah.
But he's narrating.
Yes.
And it's this noir narration that sets the tone really in a heavy way.
Yeah, it does some things that I would compare it to the movie I did not see, It Follows.
I saw It Follows.
And actually, I saw an interview with Cole Sprouse where he did specifically cite It Follows. It's definitely, I mean, they have smartphones, they have hashtags, they have Twitters. None of the cars have been made since 1980.
Yes, that's...
The only theater they have is a drive-in. They all go to Pop's Chocolate Shop.
Yes, they live in a beautiful, strange, modernized, yet classical comic book world.
The town with pep.
It is. It's the town with pep, which is a reference to the fact that most of the characters' original appearances was in a title called Pep Comics. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
no,
totally.
Learning so much.
And that is something that's so interesting, too, is that the entire show plays with this wide swath of references that most teenagers wouldn't know, but it's like very telling. In one of the opening scenes, Betty and Archie are sitting at Pop's, and Veronica comes in. They meet her for the first time. She makes a Truman Capote joke.
Oh, and I read that these children are too literate for their age.
They're very literate for their age.
I specifically wrote, they're all too literate.
Yes, they're very smart. But definitely writing them to the top of their intelligence is more fun than writing them as dopey.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that I'm going to get into later on in terms of Archie and Betty's first appearance in the comics. We'll talk about how silly they are, because they're written kind of dumb. And
accessible.
It is accessible, but there's something about this that's accessible too. Don't you agree?
I wonder if that's, though, because we're an older audience.
I wonder if that is true, although it does make teenagers, I think, feel in the know to enjoy the show, catch the reference, and then look up the reference online. Even as the show's going on, you know, they can look up the reference in real time and then learn about Truman Capote.
This is a very light comparison, but it feels like watching SpongeBob comics as an adult.
Very much so.
Shows, episodes as an adult, and there's like clearly stuff that is not for the kids in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always the mark, I think, of good entertainment for a wide variety of audiences.
Yeah.
When there is references for older viewers, younger viewers, and there's certainly a lot of modern references in here as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's not like it's all, you know, authors from the 50s, 60s
I mean, spoiler ahead, there's a Mary Kay Letourneau joke in an episode.
Exactly. And some of that stuff...
topical.
It is topical.
Suddenly, but when that episode aired, it was not.
It was, yeah. That was like, when did that case happen?
That case, I want to say, like, 98.
Okay.
But they just divorced last week.
Yeah. So...
Hot news here on the Riverdale podcast.
Yeah, that child that she seduced finally divorced her. So, okay, let's get into this a little bit. I think this is really when this episode draws the line in the sand, is at the end of the opening.
Yes.
When the sex scene happens between Geraldine Grundy, who in the comics is an old spinster, and Archie Andrews, who in the comics is certainly not as ripped, but I have always had a little crush on. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I want to back it up a little.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of setup in here with fun things. Also, I don't even... No, I didn't even write when Miss Grundy and Archie started, because I think
that's at the end.
We did not know who they were when we first saw them at the river. I think there was an assumption where we were like, she's too old for him.
There's a scene at the very end of the opening, where Archie is walking home and Geraldine drives up in her car.
Yeah, with her
and she says, "What are you doing walking in the heat?" And he says, "Miss Grundy, I guess I'm building character." And then she gives him a ride, and then it cuts to them in a steamy sex scene in the car, and that's when we know who the two of them are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say, so small observations. Mm-hmm. We see Cheryl and Jason climb into the boat.
Yes.
And then we get the narration that Dilton Doily found Cheryl at River's Edge. And I just want to say that Cheryl Blossom wore heels into a rowboat.
Yes, of course she did.
To a rocky river edge.
Of course she did.
And that's who Cheryl is.
It does. It speaks volumes to her character without her even opening her mouth.
I haven't bought a pair of heels in 10 years because I'm like, no, I have places to be. But
they're also wearing all white.
Oh, I know. So many odd decisions.
So many odd decisions if we're living in a real world.
Day
so
gloves.
Many killer decisions if we're living in the world of the show.
And two people who must burn in the sun.
Yes. They're
immediately
little gingers. Yeah. Nobody seems to get sunburned in this show. Archie's out there working in the hot sun. He doesn't get burned.
Well, he gets tanned in that the actor is not completely white, but
that is true. That's a valid point.
Yeah. So they comb the river for Jason, and Alice hoped he suffered. And then my next note is when Veronica rolls into town, and it feels like you're before that in your train of thought. What I
want to talk about next is the portrayal. Let's talk about this. Let's get it out of the way. The portrayal of Alice in this opening episode overall.
Yes.
Because she is difficult in this episode. She's difficult to deal with.
She doesn't like anyone.
Now, listen, in the comics, I just want to state that she is a non-entity in the comics. She could not be more bland. Alice Cooper, not an important character.
Is that true for most of the adults?
Yes. The teachers play more of a role. The parents are very interchangeable. Okay. That is something that this show did a very good job of, is making the parents prevalent players. The only parent that is at all a noticeable parent is Hiram Lodge, who is not even a character in this season.
No, we have casting, but we don't have Hiram.
That's right. We have casting, but we don't have him in the show yet. Which is so interesting. And they use the absence of Hiram, I feel, to flesh out all the other adult members of the community.
Yes, definitely.
Which is a cool move, and I think really smart. So here's Alice. She's this domineering, fearful for her daughter, overbearing character who just seems to be like a witch woman. It's like, what's going on? Like, why is she so shrill and harsh and awful?
She's not at all who she was in Twin Peaks.
Yeah. So did you enjoy that in the first episode, or did it stick out to you? It stuck out to me at first. It stuck out to me.
I think it didn't really cross my mind because I feel like a TV show full of teenagers is going to have the one overbearing parent.
Totally. That's fair.
It didn't strike me as at all a cool hit mom or anything. She was just like breezed right past. I was like, yeah, some parent's going to be an asshole.
For sure. Yes. And they make her sort of the villain of the first episode.
Yeah, she's feeding Betty Ritalin.
Yes, she's feeding Betty Ritalin. She's putting...
Adderall.
Oh, okay, she's feeding Betty Adderall. She is keeping all these really uncool expectations onto Betty.
Yeah.
However, I want to segue into talking about this next. What this does is it positions Betty as actually a very interesting character. And I've always been a big Betty fan in the comics, and I'll always be a big defender of Betty in the comics, and especially the way she's portrayed in a modern light, which is that she is very interested in the comics in journalism. In a lot of comics, she is really interested in automotive repair, which is super fun. She's sort of a really well-rounded, but good head on her shoulders, smart girl next door character.
She has her hair in a ponytail because she has to get it out of her face. She has stuff to do.
That's right, absolutely. And that's the sort of character she is. Now, in this show, what I love is that she is all those things, but not only that, she has the weight of the world on her shoulders.
Yes. She's under a lot of pressure. We get the introduction of Veronica.
Yeah.
And I wrote specifically Blair Waldorf, who is on Gossip Girl.
Okay.
She has, when they pull up in the car in front of the, I guess it's the townhouse that they're in?
Yep, they're in a townhouse.
Hermione reminds Veronica, quality always. And there are a lot of very specific early Blair Waldorf quotes that sound true to that point where I was able to, like, quote them in English papers in college.
Very interesting.
Very, like, precise and chosen, and quality always strikes me that way. I think I didn't notice the Gossip Girl overtone when it opens with Jughead. Because that's just a trope, is this voiceover.
Sure,
but
it's
then
like a
when
noir
we hit
trope.
on this Veronica Blair, I was like, oh yeah, it's sure is a CW show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely is a CW show.
And I don't know that they have any overlapping production. I want to see, they might have the same music producer.
Okay.
Or music supervisor, I don't know.
Yeah, music supervisor. We should look into that for future episodes.
Because I know the person who did Gossip Girl also did the OC's music, and the OC is known for its music.
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's the same one, because there's very distinct music choices in this show.
Sure. Let's talk about that for a second. The music choices. So I would say the music choices, the music programming in this show is supposed to evoke the timeless yet contemporary nature of the entire production aesthetic. There's a lot of covers of 70s and 80s songs in sort of an indie fashion. In episode 2, we're going to talk about Josie and the Pussycats' cover of Sugar Sugar specifically, because as a big bubblegum music nut, I have a lot to say about it. However, something that I do want to point out that I think you'll find interesting is in several panels at Comic-Con over the last few years, at New York Comic-Con, the panel members, when talking about Riverdale, have said, get excited for new music from the Archies associated with Riverdale. And that could not have been further from the case when the show started airing. They were really going for a different sonic palette than original music.
Yeah.
Almost completely.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting choice, and to me feels like they're slightly afraid that the original songs that they could maybe write for the show can't live up to all the really good covers that they're choosing to have on the show.
That's interesting. And talking back to Roberto and Glee, anytime Glee did an original song, which was only like twice, everyone was like, boo, take it back, no one wants this. And I feel like, so we do get original songs from Archie.
Yes.
And they're songs.
Well,
they're very, you know what, they're very true to what a broody high school boy would write.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in episode 2.
Yes.
But when the Archies became a successful pop group in the late 60s, and Sugar Sugar was the number 1 hit of all of 1969, which it was highly calculated. They had Don Kirshner as their music supervisor, who was a Brill-building producer who produced so much good-selling 60s music, including being the Svengali behind the music of the Monkees before they fired him.
Oh.
Yes, and writing for the Archies was primarily Jeff Barry and Andy Kim. Andy Kim was a newcomer at the time, but Jeff Barry wrote with his wife, Be My Baby.
Okay.
So these are big pop writers, and it's not like Riverdale got like an analogous modern writer to write for the show, like a Sia or someone like that, or The Dream. I'm thinking of like big pop writers from right now, and I think that the original music suffers because of that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's very true to what a high schooler is capable of.
That is true, and that's not kind of what we want from good old Arch. We want to be wowed by his songs. Yeah. In the comics.
This is like what he wants to do.
This is his dream. We want to believe in his dream within the context of the show. And in the comics, one of the most charming things about Archie is that he's this budding singer-songwriter that really is somewhat talented.
Yeah.
That is a big part of who he is in the comics. Or sometimes, you know, there's stories about the Archie struggling and sounding really terrible and Hiram Lodge wanting to turn them down. But that's a bit of a different portrayal of the entire character than what Riverdale is doing. So, it's definitely a deficit to the show that we don't love. I don't think either of us really like it.
I don't know anyone that does. You know what? Maybe teenage girls.
I don't think so. I don't know. We need to have a teenage girl on the show to ask her as a guest.
I notably hate boys playing acoustic guitar.
That's fair.
I've ended relationships for someone who tried to just play me guitar. Like, they'll take out a guitar and be like, no. I never want to date anyone in a band.
Oh man, we could not be more different when it comes to that.
Oh my god, it makes me sick to my stomach. I can't. And I think maybe it's a degree of me being unable to handle sincerity.
Sure, that's fair.
If you guys want to, delve into my psyche, it's, no, thank you. If some boy in high school was like, let me play you a song on my guitar, I would quit high school.
You'd be like, bye.
I would go to the nurse's office and call my mother to come pick me up. And this is coming from someone who spent all day in the music wing of my high school.
Sure, yeah, but maybe there was something about boys playing guitar for you that...
Guitar, piano, anything. If it's for anyone in particular. If it wasn't given to us on sheet music by a middle-aged man, I was like, I do not want to hear it.
Yeah, you're not into it. I get it. Maybe it reeks of a false sincerity when really the only thing those boys are trying to do is get into ladies' pants.
I think that you're reading a false sincerity, and what I'm seeing is genuine sincerity that I cannot process.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Would you say that contributes to the fact that you have a strong belief that Archie is a fuckboy? Let's discuss this.
Archie shows so many fuckboy signs.
Yeah.
I was, I'd been hearing the phrase fuckboy, and I was like, okay, I think I get it, but I'm just, not hip enough.
Yeah.
And then I saw Riverdale, and I was like, I get it. Yeah.
Someone who won't text back.
Doesn't text back, is just, all over one girl, and then it's just, all over another girl, makes it seem like he's going, all in, but is clearly, just not present. It feels like someone who would take a fidget spinner on a date.
Mm-hmm.
Not, like, with them on a date. Like, not, like, sitting down at a table with a fidget spinner, but someone who just, like, checks their texts.
Yeah.
And just...
Now, this is something else to talk about with this pilot episode regarding Archie. Well, let's talk about him a little more in that I believe he is hard to write for, and I believe he's the least compelling aspect of this pilot, which
Absolutely.
is interesting for him being the main character of this world. He doesn't really work very well in this pilot. We learn about his band aspirations. We learn he's sleeping with an older woman, basically. And none of it really rings as being true or rings as heartfelt as, like, for example, the arcs that, like, Betty and Veronica have together in this episode.
Yeah, I feel like I see it as... I don't know if you watch Orange is the New Black.
I do. I've watched the first 2 seasons.
Okay, there's before it even came out, there was a discussion with Genji Cohen, the creator, about how she was using Piper as a excuse to get in and see interesting women of color.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, there's I love that show, but
sure, it's a great show.
Not worth delving into, but I almost see it that way with Archie, where it's like, even if you've never read an Archie comic, like, you know, he's this all-American boy who would do anything for his friends. He's good at football, but he's good at music, and, like, gets good grades, but, like, we get it.
Yeah, and in the comics, he can be difficult sometimes. He gets himself into predicaments, so, you know, that leads to comedic premises for these comics. Very often they involve him mixing up Betty and Veronica for a date. That was going to be my guess,
yeah.
Yes, which...
That was my number one concern with this show.
Of course, there's going to be a love triangle, and the fact that they stray away from the love triangle immediately is incredibly smart. Because it's boring, it's played out, you know?
Yeah.
It's an old-fashioned comic book trope that no longer works. It's actually really similar to the only good thing about the movie Man of Steel that Zack Snyder made a few years ago is that immediately Lois Lane figures out that Clark Kent and Superman are basically the same. And so it doesn't deal with that whole false conflict of him tricking her. And I feel like that's where the Archie comics are very dated, is that whole love triangle conceit.
I was going to say when Parks and Rec started, network notes were, why aren't Leslie and Anne fighting over a boy? And Amy Poehler was like, I would not have signed on to this show if they were anything other than best friends. They never were interested in the same person at all, ever. And I believe, and it would make sense for Amy to at one point compare Leslie Ann to Betty Veronica, and how, like, that's not what life is like.
No, it's not what life is like.
I'm sure it is for some people, but it's by and large...
It's of my personal experience that if you're interested in the same person as someone else, and there's a constant competition to go after that same person, and it lasts for any extended period of time, you're probably not going to be friends with that person anymore.
Yeah.
However, Betty and Veronica in the comics, you know, have been going through... storyline-wise, they've been going through this thing with Archie for years upon years, and they're still, quote-unquote, best of friends. I think that's difficult to write for, and I think that they fixed the problem with the way they portray them on the show.
I will say, any instances where a friend and I had a crush on the same boy, it was either he definitely didn't like either of us back because it's unappealing.
Yeah, totally.
And the most likely situation is that I was very over high school and self-aware of high school when I was in high school. And so, like,
this was all too high school for you.
We were actually talking in the Riverdale group. Someone said it was, like, insane that one of the female characters got over a male character so fast. I was like, yeah, because it's high school. None of it mattered. Like, I would have a crush on someone in high school and then 5 months later be like, oh well. Like, dirt off my shoulder.
And that's part about what finding yourself in high school is all about. Which I think the show actually does a pretty good job of, sort of people finding their identities, figuring out who they are, who they want to be with, how they want to be acting, they want to be portrayed. Which I think leads us back to a little bit, because we talked about it a little bit, but I think it's good to talk about more Veronica. Let's talk about Veronica. Veronica is coming from a difficult situation. Her father's in jail because of some sort of Bernie Madoff-y scheme.
Yes, I said I wrote Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Are there any indications that it's a Ponzi scheme, or did we just both kind of...
I think it's just very, very hinted at the fact they're using him as an analogy for Madoff.
It seemed like he just, like, screwed a lot of people out of a lot of money, and I was like Bernie Madoff.
Very much like Bernie Madoff, which is a really smart thing to do with the character of Hiram Lodge. Yeah. One of my best friends texted me in the middle of watching the first episode and wrote, "Lol, Hiram's in jail," which I think is great.
Yeah.
But it's Veronica trying to turn over a new leaf.
Yes.
Which is certainly a good engine for why she would be kind and sweet to these kids, as opposed to being snobby and elitist.
Yes.
And Veronica has always, in the comics, she's always been a nice, wealthy girl. Mm-hmm. She certainly has her snobberies, and she can be kind of cunning. But she really means well by it. She's not an evil character in the comics. And I really, really like the way she's portrayed here. I think the two winners in this episode in terms of being portrayed in a three-dimensional, smart light are specifically Betty and Veronica.
Yeah. One thing I caught on Veronica is that I honestly have no idea what the money situation actually is for the lodges.
Totally.
Like, she's flying cupcakes in from New York or driving them in. We don't know where they are.
Yeah.
But then Hermione has to hustle. She tries to get this job with Fred. Mm-hmm. She ends up working at Pops. Mm-hmm. A thing I noticed with Fred is that there was an opening because someone was on extended paternity leave. So yes. Fred's way ahead of most America.
Yeah.
Extended paternity leave.
Yeah, Fred's allowing people to go on paternity leave.
Yeah.
Because he's a nice business owner man, yeah.
Yeah, I had another Veronica point, but...
Yeah, but
gotta find out what it was.
But Veronica is really an amazing character in the episode, and, like, I think an iconic overall character moment for the character in pop culture is when she schools Cheryl and says, you know, Cheryl, your specialty is serving fire, and mine is ice. That is Veronica, in my opinion, to a T. I think it's killer. And also, Veronica being used as a character to bring Betty out of her shell is such a smart move, because the characters in the comics, when they're being written properly, they encourage each other to take risks. And I love seeing that female friendship being portrayed in a mainstream show like this.
Yeah, I also want to say right away, woman of color.
Yes.
I think because...
Camila Mendes.
Yeah. The show, I mean, 2 out of the 3 leads actors are white. Mm-hmm. 3 of the characters are white.
Are playing as white, quote unquote.
Are playing as white. Yeah. But otherwise, there are few other white characters.
It's excellent. There's been a lot of casting in the show where they've taken characters that are traditionally white and made them diverse.
Something that runs very strong on the CW. Yes. And they've been picking up in ratings, and I think that could be one of the...
Definitely, I think that's one of the reasons is we're seeing a more diverse world than existed in the early 40s when these characters were created. And seeing Reggie as an Asian American character works really well. Seeing the Pussycats as a all African American girl group actually, in a lot of ways, makes more sense than they've always been portrayed, which is really, really, really smart. Yeah.
Going back to Veronica and her dad being in jail too.
Totally.
I remembered what I was going to say before. Everyone, at this point, Betty's the only one not in a broken home. This
is true. And her parents are, like, fucked.
On the edge of disaster.
Yeah.
And this is something that, like, I certainly had friends with divorced parents growing up, but not many. Mm-hmm. But apparently now everyone's divorced. Mm-hmm. And appealing to a younger generation of watchers, it's just what they're doing. Like, it's not...
Mm-hmm. It's so much more relatable, which is great. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
It's super smart. And it just makes the world more three-dimensional. Then, you know, the Archie Comics world is comprised of nuclear families.
Yeah.
And this is so smart that that's not the case. Also, in the Archie Comics world, more only children than really exist in real life. Betty is not an only child in the comics and in the show. Jughead is not an only child in both the comics and in the show. But in the comics and the show, Archie's an only child. Veronica's an only child. Even there, it's like, really? Like, there's this many in this one friend group?
Well, there's a lot of interesting points about class in the show.
Definitely.
And part of me is justifying that, like, well, yeah, kids are expensive.
Yeah.
And it's very clear that some of these families are not doing well financially,
mm-hmm.
but also, like, yeah, that's not what they thought of when they were doing the comics.
No, certainly not. In the comics, everybody exists in a squarely either wealthy or middle-class world.
Yeah.
Of course, there's poor characters in the comics from time to time, but there's no main characters that are poor.
Right.
It's nothing that the comics explore in depth.
Yeah.
It's just not part of that world. It would actually be a really cool thing to talk about more in that world, and maybe have a character in the comics that's a little of lesser means. It's certainly nothing that's particularly represented.
Yeah, because it's quite well represented in the show. We have wealthy, we have middle class, we have sliding.
Yep, people
and
sliding.
Poor.
Yeah, and people in gangs.
People in gangs, people in prison.
Yep, people in prison. People that are in gangs that are in gangs because it's the only way they can find work or support themselves, which is a reality for a lot of Americans.
Yes,
so it's very smart.
Speaking on that point,
mm-hmm.
A little into the episode, Archie and Fred are talking about college.
Mm-hmm.
And Fred's thought is that the only way for Archie to go to college is through football,
mm-hmm.
which is insanity.
Certainly. It feels more like a plot contrivance than anything.
Incorrect from just any standpoint. I'm going to keep going on this because, like, 2 scenes later, Fred was just like, you don't have to go to business school, you can do art.
Totally. But I know.
Earlier...
that's what makes Archie's whole through line so uncompelling, is that it's not really laid out properly.
But earlier, when he's talking to the coach... He gets Jason's old jersey, and the coach is like, oh, you're on varsity even though you're a sophomore and you should be on JV. And Archie says, I have to think about it. It's a time commitment. I have to help my dad with his business.
Yes.
That's not portrayed in TV a lot. That a lot of, like, you always hear with college you need extracurriculars. And it's like, a lot of kids can't afford to do extracurriculars.
Correct. Absolutely.
Even if it's public school and it's free, like, they have to work.
Mm-hmm. And it's a really smart thing for them to bring up in the show.
Yeah, and then it turns out to not be a problem at all.
Archie's just lying.
On it, but...
Yeah, Archie's lying. So it's something that's brought up but then discarded. And I think it's one of the reasons why we have problems with Archie in this episode. Now, someone we have not talked about yet, who I don't think have huge problems with, at least in this episode, but we need to delve into him, is the portrayal of Kevin Keller.
Yes, I wrote...
Yes, tell me about...
Page 1, gay BFF trope.
Yes, gay BFF trope. And Kevin is so great to have around. As an out gay man, I love seeing a gay character portrayed in this world. And I love seeing a gay character in the comics. That was so exciting to see the words, I'm gay, in an Archie comic, even though it was only a few years ago. Knowing that a bunch of 10-year-old boys and girls were going to read that in an Archie comic felt very empowering to me, remembering me being a kid reading Archie comics and how much they introduced to me about, like, relationships and, like, mild sort of thoughts about, like, how sexuality works. They can sort of be a gateway for that. So Kevin in the comics, I like Kevin. There is a series that I think is awesome right now that's called Life with Kevin. That's Kevin as a early 20s guy living in New York trying to make it. And the comics are online only, and they're in black and white. And they're not, I wouldn't say that they're adult, but they're certainly they have a little more of an edge to them.
Right.
And that's great. Kevin in most of the Archie comics is pretty milquetoast. His interests range from journalism like Betty, comic books like Jughead, eating like Jughead. He comes from a military family in the comics. Okay. His dad is not the sheriff in the comics. Right. His dad's a lieutenant. But then...
Is his dad cool with it?
With him being gay? Yes. And that's very intentional. They're like, this is a military man who served, who loves his gay son. Yes. Hooray! For sure. But Kevin's just sort of nice. He's sort of silly. I like Kevin. His comics are good, but very much like Archie, he doesn't have a lot of fire. And now here's this new version of Kevin who is #gay best friend trope, which is problematic as well.
Yeah, I feel like based on how you've spoken about it, if Kevin premiered in the comics today as opposed to like 7 years ago, you'd see him very differently as this just like, oh, like you gotta put in the gay one, like that
yes.
And I will say, in this episode we have during the cheerleader tryouts, it's not going well for Betty, so Veronica lays a big old kiss on her.
Yes.
And I wrote this down, the quote, Cheryl's immediate response is faux lesbian kissing hasn't been taboo since 1994.
Yeah, which is I definitely want to talk about this kiss. I think it's actually one of the weakest things that happens in the episode.
Yeah, it was fan service.
I think it's fan service. I also think it's very much the writers of the show trying to lay out, we are going to do things with these characters you would not expect us to do. However, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't let them kiss like that and then say that it's not taboo anymore, since 1994, literally right after. That moment doesn't work for me, and I'm glad that doesn't happen anymore after that, really, in the entire rest of the show.
Yeah.
I think that moment is problematic, and in at least this opening episode, I feel like Kevin's somewhat problematic as well.
There's a lot, and then I also wrote Josie's the sassy black girl. Mm-hmm. Archie comes to ask him a question, and she's like, you can't sit with us. Mm-hmm. And that's the end. That's all of it.
And these are definitely issues that I feel somewhat get addressed as the show goes on, which we'll talk about in later episodes.
Certainly.
But also, we dare the creative team behind the show to do better with season 2.
Yes.
With all of these issues.
Yeah.
Definitely. So Kevin, I mean, he's fine. He's not the best. He's not the worst. He's not the worst gay character I've ever seen portrayed on TV.
Oh, yeah.
He's certainly not the best either. He ends up having a fling.
Oh, baby!
With Moose.
Moose!
So this is a new thing for the character. In the comics, Moose is totally straight.
Midge.
Yeah, he's with Midge.
In the show, he is dating Midge.
In the show, he's dating Midge as well. Absolutely. Now, Moose is honestly one of my favorite Archie characters.
Okay.
I just think he's really funny. I really like... in the comics, he has sort of a heart of gold. Mm-hmm. which I really like.
I think he does in the show too.
I think he does too.
I don't think Moose gets enough credit.
Yeah.
And I hope that we get, hey writers, I want more Moose.
Yeah, not only is that actor totally cute, in my opinion.
Oh my God.
I really like that he is at least heteroflexible enough that he wants to hook up with this out gay guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not thrilled with, we'll talk about more of this in episode 2, I'm actually not thrilled with the way he's sort of given a slap on the wrist by Kevin.
By Kevin himself.
But we'll talk about that more in episode 2.
Small Moose thing. Mm-hmm. When they're at the dance, Kevin comes to Betty, I believe, and says, Moose just accosted me in the bathroom. His appendage is horse-like. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It should be Moose-like.
Well, he says that. He says, despite the fact that his nickname is Moose, his appendage more resembles. Yeah.
My feeling, and this is a comedy preference, is don't sell yourself short. If it's a dumb joke, just go hard.
I agree with that.
If you have a pun, don't be like, nope, it's a pun. Like, no, just say it and own it and believe in it, and it will be so funny if you support it.
And that's something that this show, this pilot, I will say, ends up doing a lot. And I think we're hitting on this quite a few times in our critique of it.
Yeah.
It is very frightened about not being hip enough.
Yeah.
And there's some overwriting going on. There's over-explanations of jokes, references, moments. And I feel like luckily that gets smoothed out as the show continues.
Yeah, because then there's other things when we do finally meet Jughead.
Yes.
And this is something I
near the end of the episode, the reveal. Yeah.
I hadn't noticed it in the first couple watches. I think I did notice it later and I wrote it down. Very, very in passing, it is mentioned that the water polo team is called the Aquaholics.
Yup.
And they just, blow past it, and, I want more of that. I want more disregard for the dumb stuff you say.
Yeah, and just that this is part of the world, and that the world is hokey, which is what makes the stakes of the murder and the tumultuous events that these people are going through the stakes so much higher, right?
Here's what I want. We have all these dads, not one dad joke.
Totally. We need a dad joke. Yeah. This is a city full of dads, or a town full of dads. Yeah. Dad town. Yeah.
It's dad town.
Totally.
Hot dads in town. And we have the dads, the actors playing the dads are these known actors where it's like, what have you been up to?
Yeah.
And the answer better be coming up with some sweet dad jokes.
Agreed.
I want all of it. This is one of my dream for season 2 is just dumb jokes for 13 episodes. Hear that, writers? Hire me. I'm here for your dumb jokes.
Yeah, and I wish that for season 2, mainly for you.
And if I'm in that writer's room, anytime you say one, I'll stand up and go, woo!
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone's going to feel great about it.
And make a character stand up and do that after each joke in the show.
Just have every episode you can see almost out of focus is someone in the background that just feels that joke.
Yeah.
It's just all right.
So let's talk for a second before we finish our critique of this episode.
Yes.
This dynamic that's established between Archie and Jughead, which is really killer for opening pilot, in that they are iconically best friends.
Yes.
Portrayed as best friends. And there are very rarely Archie comics where they're even in any sorts of fights. It's just nothing that's that explored. And here they are, and they haven't talked to each other really in several months.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. And Jughead is not in this episode a lot, which I was very disappointed in the first time I watched it, because I was worried
Second to last scene is when we see him.
Yes, that's correct. And I was worried that he wouldn't be in the show a lot, because Jughead is one of my most favorite characters of all time in any medium for any reason.
Norm Macdonald's too, if you're a big fan of dumb jokes.
Oh, he's one of Norm Macdonald's favorite characters?
I assume Norm Macdonald constantly talks about reading Jughead comics.
That's fascinating. Jughead is, in my opinion, is arguably one of the greatest literary characters of the 20th century.
I know, I gotta get behind you on this. I gotta read some.
Yes, and in future episodes, I'm gonna help you guys to some Jughead issues to read that are gonna prove my point.
Good.
Yeah, but for now, here he is. He's sitting wearing his, totally fine as fuck, sexy ass wool beanie hat.
I love it. You love it.
Oh my god.
I love it. You love it.
I love it. That
I didn't
little
notice
crown.
it right away. I also did not notice the casting right away, but finish your thoughts. I'm going to go into this casting.
Yeah. And he's a night owl at Pops writing his novel about the murder, with the circles under his eyes. And we'll get more into this into episode 2, but all I want to say for now is this is a very smart portrayal of Jughead.
Yes. I want to talk about the casting for a second. Because your concern was that they weren't going to include him a lot.
Yes.
And I will say, I watched the first episode, and it wasn't until I saw someone posted in our group, someone I went to high school with actually posted an interview with Cole Sprouse about Jughead's asexuality, which is not what I'm going to bring up.
Yes.
What I'm going to mention is that it had Cole Sprouse, and I went, hey, wait a minute. That's the kid from Zack and Cody. Which I did not, he was my crush this episode, and I was like, hold up. Because I was too old for Zack and Cody, but I at one point worked in Nicktoons.
Oh, cool.
Which Zack and Cody's not on, but Nicktoons' immediate rival is Disney XD, so
Certainly.
we would just leave it on all day.
Yes, to see what was going on.
Yeah.
You probably ended up watching one of my favorite shows, which we won't get into right now, Zeke and Luther, which is...
I never watched it. It was on in the background.
Yeah, Zeke and Luther, which is a show that is nothing but crazy, insane things happening the whole time. Yeah.
So, Cole Sprouse... Another interesting thing about that is when my coworker started watching on Netflix, and I would have never known except I was walking by and he had paused right on the Pops sign, and I cozied up. I was like, "Hey, what's going on? What episode are you on? What's going on? What do you think? Who do you think is the killer?" And I mentioned that Jughead was either Zack or Cody from The Sweet Life or Zack and Cody, which I work in TV, so you know the names. But and he was like, "You know who he reminds me of is." When I have nothing to watch, I just, put on reruns of Friends. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, he's Ben.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Which I did not realize until he was on Riverdale. And I was like, what has he been up to? And the answer is he just, went to college.
Yes,
He was done acting. He was working. He studied archaeology, and he was working in, restoring artifacts. and then went out for an audition, and now everyone's all about Cole Sprouse again.
Yeah.
Also, one of the funniest Twitters.
Yes, he's very good on Twitter.
He's very good.
Yeah, and we're going to get into, in episodes, we're going to do segments all about the social media lives of these people.
I get his tweets texted to me.
Yeah, because you love them so much?
They're so funny. It's like, I follow, like, Hollywood crushes.
Yeah.
I get texts from 3 people, and the other 2 are just, like, my 2, like, biggest Hollywood crushes, and then, like, Cole Sprouse's very funny Twitter.
Yeah, I get it. He's a real dreamboat. This, you know, as someone who has big old crush on a lot of these Archie Comics characters for different reasons.
Yeah, then getting real hotties in their place.
Getting real hotties, but also getting portrayals that really capture the spirit of the characters is very exciting for me. And we'll get into that the more Jughead is in the show. Because he only makes a surprise appearance at the end of the show.
Yeah, well, and so you didn't think it was going to be in it much, and I, like, didn't really know a lot about Jughead, but then it was like, oh, he's the name.
Yeah.
All of these people, this is Lilly Reinhardt plays Betty. This is her first role.
Yep.
Camila Mendes, her first role.
Yep.
Casey Cott, his first role.
Yep.
KJ Appa's second role in the U.S., the other one being A Dog's Purpose, which was delayed because the dog was abused.
Because the abuse stuff that happened. Yep.
And I saw half the trailer one time and said, I will never watch this. It looks too sad.
Totally.
He has an okay career in New Zealand, apparently.
Okay. Well, he's certainly a handsome young actor.
He's not inflated the Concourse, and he wasn't in Top of the Lake, so got me.
So how would we know? Yeah, exactly.
How am I supposed to know?
So, overall, I feel like this episode is a strong start.
Yes.
It certainly is not without its share of problems. I feel like the problems got ironed out as the show went on.
Yes.
But it's a very compelling take on this world, on the characters, and using the characters in a way that is fresh and unique, and overlaying a genre on top of them, which is what I would say Robert Aguirre Sacasa is all about as a writer.
Yes.
And this is just more example of that. And then also the characters are so well defined in the comics and have had this, 75-year history that they're very malleable, and using them in this way for a fan of the comics is a no-brainer. But I think for a lot of people who weren't as familiar with the characters or haven't thought about them since they were 9 or 10 years old was a big surprise.
Yes. I'm going to add a new segment because I want to talk about...
Great, let's do it.
Fun goofs, just fun...
Yeah, fun goofs. Fun goofs with Kate.
Seeing.
Okay, Kate, what are your fun goofs for the episode?
Started with the heels in a boat.
Yes, heels in a boat. Ridiculous.
Insane that Betty is a high schooler and had an internship where she worked very closely with Toni Morrison.
Yes!
Insane!
Which makes me want to have Toni Morrison on as a guest on the show, right?
You have to, of course. Mm-hmm. I feel like to work closely as an intern with Toni Morrison, you had to have gone to, be, valedictorian at, a historically black college majoring in African-American literature. It's insane. You get to be Beyonce.
Or you just need to be Betty Cooper, all-American, sweetie from Riverdale.
Betty Cooper.
And actually, that has always been something about the comics that is true, is that there's always feels like there's an overreach, that it's kind of like, oh, it's my little garage band, the Archies, then it's all of a sudden, it's like, now I'm interviewing for record contracts in Los Angeles, and that happens to these characters a lot. So that's actually very true to the comics in a very funny way.
I love it. She can't get college credit, she goes to public school. Did they pay her?
Yeah.
You gotta pay an internship for Toni Morrison?
Yeah, how did that happen?
God.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Betty.
Oh my god. Fun teenage sad white boy. Archie did construction while writing lyrics because it made him feel something real.
Oh yeah. Oh, amen.
Tell
me about it.
When Veronica goes to Pops, she's wearing a cape to die for.
Yes.
I have been searching for probably 10 years for the perfect cape, and I have not found one, and I did find it, and it was on Veronica's body.
I'd say the clothes on Betty and Veronica and Cheryl are unbelievably smart and cool.
Oh my god, I want all of it!
And a lot of them look like the looks that those characters have had in the comics over their history.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's one of my favorite things about the show. Yeah.
Betty wears J. Crew. There's no question that Betty wears J. Crew.
Mm-hmm.
And then Veronica wears high fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I noticed is Reggie says, "Did you tap Cougar House doing construction?" And it's like, oh, you were real close. You were, like, pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Reggie's smarter than he looks and acts. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I thought of this or a character thought of this. I wish it was me, but I feel like it was a character. Said Justin Gingerlake about Archie, his music.
Very smart, yeah.
I think the total count for people that notably who thought Archie got hot over the summer in the episode was like minimum 6. It was like Betty noticed, Kevin noticed, Veronica was like, who's this hot guy? Valerie thought he was cute, Cheryl thought he was cute, Grundy thought he was cute.
Well, Grundy thought he was more than cute.
Yeah, but like and there was someone, I might come to it later, like everyone we came across was introduced as having a crush on Archie.
Definitely, which is a great way to position the character because the world should revolve around Archie. Yeah. It's one of the things that actually makes the show difficult is that this show doesn't revolve around Archie.
Which is good.
Yes, ultimately is great.
Yeah. Especially like it's one of the... I've been trying to just write off shows that are about straight white boys.
Of course. Yeah.
And it's interesting that KJ Apa is not white. His father is a Maori king.
This is true, yeah.
Or chief.
Yeah.
Which is insane, but then both parents in the show are white.
Sure.
Bummer.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bummer, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone liking Archie's music is insane. Just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Something we didn't talk about that's an important plot point. Archie and Grundy heard a gunshot the day Jason drowned.
That's correct.
Very important.
Yeah. Who shot that gun? We don't know yet. We don't know.
I wrote Alice turned on Polly. She just, like, fucking gave up on her kid.
Yeah, she sure did. Well, she's just not a well-written character in this first episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Because she also definitely hates Archie and Hermione. And Hermione's someone she went to high school with, so I was like, okay. But, like, why does she hate Archie?
Well, beyond that, it's not even if there's something specific with Archie. It just feels like she hates all children and the fact that Betty goes to school, which is not a reasonable attitude. That's like a crazy lady thing. You can't hate every single person your child goes to school with and tell them not to spend time with any of them. It's unrealistic. It's completely weird.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, totally. And it's not helpful for the plot of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, the believability of it. Yeah.
Multiple times in this episode, they mentioned that this summer changed everything.
Yes, this summer changed everything a la Grease.
Yes. Their school dance's theme is Jason.
Yes, which is a nightmare.
But it's like so funny to have a theme be a person.
It's like a wake. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's something I want to talk about. I think this is a good time to talk about it. Okay, Josie and the Pussycats, first episode. They say that what they do is play their own music, but then they make an excuse and they play a cover, which then they do for the rest of the season.
Yep.
And they play a song called All Through the Night, which is on Cyndi Lauper's debut album, which is called She's So Unusual, which is one of my favorite albums. I love
Queen Cindy.
Yeah, totally. And I love All Through the Night. I think it's awesome. It's such a good song. However, Cheryl says this is the song that Jason and I
we're conceived to.
So there's a few things about this. A, nightmare, thing that no one would ever say in front of a whole bunch of people. Yeah. B, that song came out in 1984.
You can play songs later.
You can play songs later, but were Cheryl's parents, those like stodgy blossoms, super into Cyndi Lauper's All Through the Night from 1984 in like 2000 when these...
I was about to lean into the mic and say these children were conceived on September 11th, 2001. They are 16.
Yeah.
This is 2017. They are 9/11 babies.
They could be right around there. Absolutely.
What a twist.
It is. That's a real twist.
I want everyone to think I'm a 9/11 conspiracy theorist.
I think, that's a great bent for this podcast.
This is the point of the show where it pivots.
Yeah, it really pivots. This is an Archie Riverdale truther podcast. Yes.
Jet fuel cannot melt Steve's beans. Next.
So they were listening to She's So Unusual in 2001 while they were conceiving. However, that being said, I guess I was certainly listening to She's So Unusual a lot in the early 2000s because I fucking love that album. So I guess I'll give it a pass.
Yeah.
But it just seems like a weird choice. Like,
yeah.
Like, it's not Hey Ya. You know, like, that was really popular in 2001. Like...
Hey Ya was a little after 2001.
I guess it was like 2002, 2003.
was...
it was like Missy. There was a lot of Missy.
It was right after Backstreet Boys' biggest selling album, Millennium.
That's true, yeah.
So it was also big for NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, it was Bye Bye Bye.
Bye Bye Bye. Bye 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 would have been what they would have been conceived
It was
to.
Bye Bye Bye. Also, interestingly... What really sticks out to me is Yellow by Coldplay.
Yes.
Because they cut all the normal MTV programming for 9/11, and then the first music video they played was Yellow by Coldplay.
God bless. Ugh. So anyway, just want to point that out.
Yep, okay, cool. Bringing it back around.
Yeah.
In a post-James Franco world, can't we be everything?
Yes. Such a statement in the show that is so much about
also, I'm like,
the tone of the show.
Teenagers have only ever known James Franco as who he is now. Like, he was never James Franco from Freaks and Geeks.
That's right. Or even James Franco from Spider-Man.
No.
Now he's just this...
He's
James Franco.
I was at Sundance in 2011, and there was James Franco installation art.
Yeah.
And I sat on a couch in a room that was projecting episodes of 3 Companies on all 4 walls, and noir narrated by James Franco.
Really?
Yes.
Oh boy.
And I was the only one in there for a very long time.
Oh, man.
But I'm glad I saw it, because now I get to tell people I saw James Franco installation art.
And I hope he appears on the show.
Oh my god.
He'd be such a good match for this show.
Yes, and it seems like something he would very much like to do.
Yeah.
It seems like a very James Franco move.
I agree, 100%.
I love James Franco. At the same time, I hate James Franco. What a fuckboy, am I right? On topic.
On topic.
On topic. I wrote and highlighted, truly do not think we're talking about Moose enough.
Yep, but we did talk about Moose, which is pretty good.
Still,
we're definitely members of the Moose fan club.
Yes.
Yep. We love him.
Hashtag Moose. Our show will have hashtags, and this one is hashtag Moose.
Yes.
And you will click on it on Twitter, and you will say there's too much in here, and immediately close it.
That's right.
When they're in the 7 Minutes in Heaven closet, someone proposes, Veronica or Archie says, ask me anything, and the response is a kiss. Insane. Veronica said multiple times, it's not the Met Ball. Like, what high schoolers go to the Met Ball other than Jaden Smith?
Yeah, well, apparently Veronica. Yeah. Who I bet, when she was in New York, hooked up with Jaden Smith. Come on.
Oh, I don't think so. I think she's too sensible. Also, Jaden definitely lives in LA.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, it's obvious that he lives in LA.
I shouldn't have even brought it up.
You should be embarrassed. We'll edit this out.
Yes, totally.
And Jughead at the end says, it's a town of shadows and secrets.
Beautiful.
Boy, is it.
Ugh. And that being said, I think it's time for us to discuss our Riverdale power ranking.
Our power rankings. So we decided that the power rankings is both likability and ability to move the plot.
That's right. And let's talk about who we came up with. Let's go.
All right.
Let's go in ascending order, right? So from bottom to top of the list.
I will say I will give you a little foreshadowing here. We agreed on number 1.
We certainly agreed on number 1 for this episode.
We're close, kind of working the way down, but number 1 was across the board agreed. So we have down and last Fred, because...
He doesn't do much in this episode.
He doesn't do much, but...
he has conflicting views.
But it's Luke Perry, so he's going to stick around.
Oh my god, we love him.
Next up is Reggie, who you say is important in the comics.
Reggie's mad important in the comics.
Okay.
Reggie's a real foil for all the characters.
He dates Ethel?
No.
Okay.
In the comics, he's trying to get with Midge, Betty, Veronica. He sometimes successfully takes Betty or Veronica out for dates, occasionally, but he often boffs the dates by being really self-centered. He's a foil for Archie. He also sometimes sort of beats Archie to the punch when Archie's trying to ask Veronica out. That happens a lot. The other thing that Reggie's known for... There are the 2 other things Reggie's known for in the comics is, A, his propensity for practical jokes. He loves playing pranks on the rest of them.
Gotta bring it in season 2. You know what I said about goofs.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be amazing for season 2.
Hate pranks.
Huh?
I hate pranks.
Yeah, as do most people. Reggie loves them. And Reggie's also insanely vain. Reggie's really into himself.
Feels like they hit that on the show.
They definitely... Oh, that's definitely what they use as the crux of the character on the show. Anyway, yeah, that's Reggie.
Okay. Grundy, who is important to the plot, but is a monster.
Yeah, Grundy is highly influential.
Pedophile.
Yeah, she is. She's a pedophile.
And someone will write in and say, I think you mean pederast, but bullshit. I do not differentiate. She is a pedophile.
That's fair. I mean...
I understand the, definition.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I feel like the issue with her and Archie is... I'm gonna tread lightly here so that I don't sound like I'm a sympathizer for pederasts. But when something happens between a teacher and a student that's like that, it happens because of a big criteria of factors, and it also happens because someone, mainly the teacher, does not know where to draw the line.
Yeah.
And I feel like, at least in the first few episodes, that's not written smartly enough in this show, and it makes us just have icky feelings instead of having complex feelings, which I think we should be having.
Right. And I think it's also interesting to look at because KJ Apa is not 16.
Yeah, but he's still not that old. No, he's only 18 when they were filming, so he's still young. He looks
older, but I'm basing that on my crush on him. I just decided he has to look older to allow that to exist.
Hey, people have crushes on different people. KJ Apa is a very handsome actor. He's 18 in the show. I get it.
Yeah.
We are all allowed to have crushes on dreamy KJ Apa. That doesn't necessarily mean that if we were KJ Apa's teacher, in his high school, that we would necessarily be like, oh, it's a really good idea for us to put the moves on this young man.
Also, when I was in high school, I had the sense to, not even have crushes on high schoolers.
Yeah, sure. That's fair.
Let alone now.
Yeah.
I remember sitting with a coach in college, and we were watching, a high schooler row. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, do you remember, when that was attractive to us?
And you were like, not me.
And I was like, maybe when I was, 7.
Yeah.
But also then when we shared a little laugh, and what do you know? Next up from that is Hermione.
Mm-hmm.
She brings us Veronica, and she gives important characteristics to Veronica.
Very much so. Their scenes together are really good in this episode,
yes,
I think.
I'm not an improviser, but I've heard enough people talk about improv to know that she is gifting.
She is gifting Veronica, very much so. And she herself is already in this first episode more interesting than she's ever been in the comics, where you can go 5 years without seeing her in the comics. Yes.
Fun.
Yeah.
Because everyone...
She predates Hermione Granger as a character, yeah.
Now, did you know how to say Hermione?
Before Hermione Granger?
Yeah.
No. Certainly not.
I dressed as Hermione Granger in 1998 for Halloween.
Oh, sweet.
And no one knew how to say it, and I definitely said her name wrong.
Yeah.
Also, everyone thought I was just a witch. And I was like, no, I'm a special witch.
That sucks.
But then, look where we are now.
I know.
Everyone knows Hermione Granger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up above Hermione is Alice.
Yeah. Domineering.
Villain, very important.
Villain.
Again, gifting.
Yep, villain of the piece. Yep.
Yes. Above that, Archie.
Yeah, he doesn't get a high ranking because he's not compelling enough, and
we've talked about this at length.
But he doesn't drive enough of the plot of this episode either.
For someone who has many scenes, two-person scenes with himself.
Yeah, totally. Archie, you are the weakest link.
Oh boy, 2001!
Exactly.
2001, we're living in 2001!
Exactly.
Above Archie, my boy Moose.
Yeah. Moose drives way more of what's going on in this episode in a way that's really surprising and is totally awesome and I love. Yeah.
Above Moose, Jughead.
Yeah, and we both wish Jughead was higher in the episode.
Yeah.
But
I understand why he wasn't.
Yeah, it gives more dramatic tension to the whole show. And he still plays a pivotal role in the scene he has with Archie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Above Jughead is Cheryl.
For sure. Cheryl deserves to be really high in this episode. And I haven't really talked about this yet. Cheryl is another character that's way more interesting on the show than she ever has been in the comics. Yeah.
Cheryl's someone she is ranked 5th to us, and she would take issue with that.
Yes, she would take issue with that.
Above Cheryl, we have Josie and the Pussycats. They're still kind of one...
Yeah, as an entity. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
We just like her. I feel like that's why she's here.
Yeah, and they make such impression. They do. They make an impression in this episode, and it's one of the things that's really exciting and refreshing about the episode.
Yeah, above them is Kevin.
Yeah.
who thinking about this now, plays a little bit the kind of like Greek chorus.
Yeah, he's our guide. Kevin's very much our guide.
Is the voiceover, but because Kevin's explaining to Veronica, who everyone is, Betty's giving the clinical, like, they're another student, and Kevin's giving you the hot goss.
Absolutely, and we welcome Kevin's hot goss in this episode.
Love the hot goss.
Yeah.
Number 2, Betty.
For sure.
Yes.
Betty, number 2, for sure. It's so exciting to see both Betty and Veronica as being really the center of the entire season.
I find Betty to be the most relatable. That could be because...
Totally.
Because of who I am, but also if you're saying that too.
I just think that it's really great to give a character like Betty so many internal conflicts.
Yeah. Oh, I should say I have great parents. They weren't like... Our parents are not alike.
Oh, no. For sure. For me as well, but... It's really great to see Betty be a character who's wrestling with herself.
She's very driven.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, number 1, Veronica.
Veronica Lodge. Veronica is so...
She kind of sets it in motion. You could say that Jason's murder did, but Jason's murder happened several months before this started.
That's correct. And
everything changed when Veronica Lodge showed up to Riverdale.
Yes. Everything changes in this episode when she shows up. We see the town through her eyes, and despite the fact that she comes from a world of means, she's still so relatable and grounded.
Yes.
She's trying to give herself another chance. She's been through a lot of heartbreak when the show starts, regarding her father, and here she is trying to make the best of it in a new situation, which is great use of the character.
Yes.
And I certainly have to say, sometimes Veronica can be portrayed as really petty in the comics, and I'm very happy that I feel like she's not ever used that way in the course of the entire series. It's awesome. And that goes well into the segment I want to talk about.
Wait, I want to talk about our true forever number 1.
Sorry, our true forever
never
number 1.
Loses the place, ascends to heaven is Vegas the dog.
Yeah, Vegas the dog, our favorite character of the whole series.
Unquestionable.
Always.
Never moves down, never moves up.
No, Vegas
because
is
there's
always...
nowhere to go from on top.
Yeah, true number 1, Vegas the dog.
Number 1 forever.
Okay, so we want to talk about the crushes that we've had for this episode. Kate's assembled 3 crushes. I've assembled 1. Yes. So you go first. Who are your crushes?
Okay. So I do want to preface this because we both discussed this. Not necessarily who we sexually fantasize.
Yeah, not necessarily who we would sleep with in IRL, but maybe who we're in love with on the show.
Kisses.
Yeah, exactly.
My number 3, Moose.
Okay.
This whole episode, God, I love Moose.
Yeah.
Love Moose. Number 2, Archie. Boring. Real hottie.
Yeah, real hottie.
Real hottie. Number 1, Jughead. Not usually my type.
Oh, interesting.
But loving it.
Yeah.
I feel like my type isn't very well represented on the show.
What is your type?
My type...
I want to match it
visually,
with an Archie Comics character.
Actually, just totally overall is Josh Hutcherson.
I don't know who that is.
He was in the Hunger Games.
Oh, is he the blonde one?
Yes, who's not really blonde.
Got it. Okay. Who
Boxy. I would also... Do you watch Shameless?
No.
Oh, there's another, like, boxy person in that where I'm like, yes, could potentially be a Lego person.
You might be a fan. I mean, Moose.
Right.
Moose fits the type.
Yes.
And then also there's a character from the Josie and the Pussycats comics named Alan M, who you might have a crush on.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, he's blonde. He's a little boxy.
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, he's a little boxy, and he's supposed to be the handsomest man that any of them know, and Josie has a big crush on him.
He's the John Hamm of the Archie universe.
He is.
Okay,
He's very handsome. For me, this episode, my crush, Moose.
Yes.
I love him.
Agreed.
I dig a good closet case.
Yes.
Men watch out, dig a good closet case, and I've just always really loved Moose, and I like portraying him as someone who's in conflict with his own sexuality. I like that a lot, but willing to go there with Kevin.
Yes.
I would have loved to have had
the lips. He's pulling the pretty woman.
Yeah, he is. Everything but kissing. And, you know, to be honest, I would have loved to have had a football jock like that in high school who would have been willing to fool around by the riverbank with me. And I didn't have that, so...
I'm under the impression that now they're not even in the closet and that teenage kids are just, like, all it's like a very like SNL's drunk uncle perspective of it, where I'm like, all the kids are out, all the kids are sleeping and kissing with everyone, and they're everything, and they're loving it.
Yeah, they're just trying it all out and seeing if it works.
I love it.
I know.
It's great. It's a very good thing, but I'm also just like so out of touch with what high schoolers are like.
This is true. Yeah.
I have no idea.
We definitely need to have like a high schooler.
Where are we going to find a high schooler?
Well, not in a way that'll be good. We'll figure it out.
What? I bet. No, I've tried. I sometimes during the year a little more, I'd be at the boathouse on Saturdays, and when the high schoolers would come in,
sure,
and I'd like listen specifically to see if they were talking about Riverdale.
Yeah,
and they never were.
Oh, I'm sure we can find someone.
I wonder. And I mean, they're not in season now; they're all taking their finals. But someone on the team might have a teenage kid.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
I don't. The only one I know with the kids are like very young.
Yeah, young kids. Yeah,
college.
Yeah, not young enough. We need children.
I mean, talk about finding crushes. Oh, that's another, like, of my type is I will immediately fall in love with you if you can row. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you say. I will immediately fall in love with you, and then I will backtrack from there.
Yes, so rowing is very important to you.
That was, this morning, I had someone right in front of me, and I was like, all right.
Yeah.
You're like 20.
Yep, but you can row.
Listen, I know your dad.
Yeah, for me it's drummers.
Oh my god, I'm a drummer. Do you love me?
I do.
Oh my god.
We're
cool. Exactly each other's types.
So that's crushes.
Yes.
And now
your segment.
I want to talk about, and I'm going to do this every few episodes, notable comics appearances by these characters.
I'm going to eat while you do it.
Yeah, go for it. Eat your Larabar while I do this.
Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about notable comics appearances by these characters that if you want to learn more about the characters' comic book origins, you should read, help supplement your knowledge about them from Riverdale. And today, I'm going to talk about, first, I'm going to talk about Pep Comics number 22. Now, Pep Comics number 22 is the comic that features the first appearance of Archie, Betty, and Jughead. And we're going to talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
Certainly feel free to ask me any questions, and I'm going to hip some wisdom on you about this comic. So, it is from 1941, and it was supposed to be a comedy comic with teenagers. Archie was based on a lot of sources, including, like, Judy, Mickey, Let's Put On a Show, that sort of vibe. And in the original comic, something that I think you're going to be like, WTF, is he's portrayed as hating the name Archie, and he wants to go by the name Chick instead.
I was like, yeah, I couldn't get him hating Archie. But
yeah, so he wants to be called Chick. Mm-hmm. The issue features Archie meeting Betty for the first time. Betty's just moved into the neighborhood. Archie's trying to impress Betty by balancing on a fence. All right?
Okay.
And then Archie, in his clumsy, charming way, falls into a portrait of Betty's father, and his head goes through the hole, so it looks like Archie's head is the head of the portrait. And that happens in the first 2 pages.
Love it. I want these goofs in the show.
Yeah, exactly. I know you want those goofs in the show. Yeah. And then we meet Jughead, and Archie's talking about Jughead. And Jughead is drawn in this first comic as, like, butt ugly. And Archie's talking about how into Betty he is, and Jughead's, like, first line of dialogue is like, Archie, you know that I feel that women are trouble. So that's, like, how we portray Jughead immediately.
Yeah.
Is he's not into girls. Archie is into girls. That's a big discrepancy between the two characters. I think is explored in a smart way in the show as well. And then, you know, hijinks ensue. Archie ends up being asked to be a tightrope walker. It's very silly. There's a lot of physical comedy. And that's how, you know, how it all goes down. But we really, in essence, have in the first issue Archie's well-meaningness, Betty's sweetness, and Jughead's cynicalness, which we see all the way through to their portrayals on Riverdale, laid out in that very first issue of the comic, which is so interesting. And the other comic that I want to talk about, which I don't think will surprise you, is Pep number 26, which happened 4 issues later, where a new girl comes into town, and that girl is Veronica Lodge. And she is described many times in the issue as being a sub-deb, which is a 40s terminology for, like, a young debutante.
Okay.
Interesting, right?
Well, then also, yeah.
Yes.
That's the right age.
So
and when we saw the Deb on the first episode of OC, we know what they are.
Yeah, exactly. So she's a sub-debutante. She's a sub-deb. And Archie scores a date with her. He's super excited. He realizes that he doesn't have enough money to take her out because he knows she's going to have expensive tastes. Mm-hmm. So he gets a job as a busboy wearing a tuxedo at a fancy restaurant called El Crocodero.
Crocodero?
Yep. El Crocodero.
Love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's the thing in this first episode that, like, is not addressed as the super fancy waiter at Pop's.
Totally. Yes, the super fancy waiter at Pop's. So El Crocodero, and then he steals the tux to take Veronica on a date. But the tux is needed by another busboy, and then Veronica, of course, wants to go to El Crocodero.
Oh, boy.
So hijinks ensue, because then Archie has to hide the fact that he's working at El Crocodero.
Yeah.
And that's the plot. But immediately we set up this power relationship that also translates into the show when it comes to Veronica. And also, it is traditional that Veronica is a newcomer to Riverdale.
Okay.
That's a traditional aspect to the characters, which has been explored in other ways as well throughout the comics history.
So, question about Pep Comics, was there like a main character where these came as sub-characters, or was it just like every issue is like a totally different thing? It strikes me as like you're gonna send it overseas to the boys at war.
Yes.
And so there's no chronology to it, because there can't be.
Definitely. The early comics definitely didn't have a chronology or a serialization to them. Things would be repeated in different comics. Each story was very self-contained.
Right.
Archie was that publishing company's first stab at teen comedy. Okay. There also, in Pep Comics, were superhero stories, and there were also funny animal stories as well, which was a subgenre.
I want to hear more about funny animals.
I know. I'll do some research into that for you, but there were like these sort of, I would say, Warner Brothers Disney knockoff characters.
Oh, interesting. Some more Looney Toony.
Yeah. And they were these funny animals, and they still own the rights to all of those characters. You know, and some of the characters that were created by, like, the superheroes, there was a character named The Shield, who's still an Archie Comics character.
Right, starring Michael Chiklis. Yes.
Yeah, sure, yeah, exactly.
Comic book starring Michael Chiklis.
Really, when they discovered Archie pretty quickly became their bread and butter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Archie was a pretty big runaway success for the company right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. All
absolutely.
Things I will flush from my memory when I go to bed tonight.
Yeah, totally.
But I will dig out for trivia night sometime.
And then you'll dig out for episode 2.
Episode 2, which we are filming a week from now.
Yes.
Recording a week from now, because that is how TV works.
Exactly. So, episode 2, what can we look forward to for episode 2?
Looking forward to episode 2. I feel like this, it's a little tough to look forward to the new episode coming off a pilot.
This is true.
Because pilots are very self-contained.
Mm-hmm.
But we hope to see, who it is that's arrested Monday morning.
Mm-hmm. Who's arrested Monday morning? Do Moose and Kevin ever get uncockblocked? That's big.
Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, classic cockblock is a dead body.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
We've all been there, exactly. So join us.
And you can check our own stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. What stuff do you want to plug?
Wow. I have Twitter. I have Instagram. I have Facebook. Mm-hmm. I have a website. All of it's under my name, Kate Vatter, V as in Velociraptor, ATTER. That's the part you could get. Everything's listed there. If I get enough views on my Funny or Die articles, I make more money.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah.
I'm nowhere near that threshold, but hey, baby. One of them is two of them, but one of the ones I get paid for is Riverdale. I pitched 33 Riverdale articles to Funny or Die until they bought one.
Yes.
And they finally did, and it has very few views.
Oh, man. But it's really funny. I really like it.
Thank you. It's for a very specific crowd of people who both enjoy Riverdale and know enough about Ernest Hemingway. This is
true. But it's very funny.
Thank you.
You can check out my other podcast. It's a music discussion podcast with my buddy Kyle. It's called Kick the Jukebox. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, SoundCloud. Tumblr. And you can check out my Twitter at Louie4711. And you can also check out my website, louiepearlman.com, and it has a listing of my upcoming comedy shows, what I'm doing writing-wise. I'm an art and culture writer. And we can take it from there, and we can develop a really cool fandom relationship.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Peace out.
We will see you.
XOXO Riverdale.
XOXO Riverdale. We'll see you in a week. 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 We'll see you in a week.